Hi, this is Mujtaba Al-Hilo and I'm your instructor in the course of Gothic Fiction. And this is another lecture on this novel, and today we are going to go deep into the novel and we are going to have some practical study. We are going to have some examples from the novel itself and try to analyze and try to apply what we have studied so far. And we will try in these readings, in the coming readings, to find out those Gothic elements, those Gothic bodies, those psychological theories that we have studied so far. We try to find them in the novel chapter by chapter. So today this lecture presents a Gothic reading of the first 3 chapters of Wuthering Heights. In each chapter, summary, analysis, and quotations are presented. So we are going to focus today on chapter 1, 2, 3 and try to have that Gothic analysis that we have studied so far in this reading. Let's go to chapter 1. Today we are going to have 3 parts. First, we are going to have a summary on the chapter, on each chapter. Then we are going to have that Gothic analysis, and number 3 we will have some readings of some important quotations from the novel. So please, I hope you will enjoy, and please stay tuned and focus and try to take notes from this lecture. Chapter 1, the summary of chapter 1 is that, by the way, before I move on to the summary, you should read the text itself. Nothing is enough, nothing will be enough, and nothing will take the place of the text itself. The text itself, the original novel, is of great importance in order to understand the nature of the novel, the nature of Gothic fiction, the nature of the theories that we have been studying so far. You should read the novel itself and nothing else. But now I suppose you have read chapter 1, chapter 2 and chapter 3, so I'm going to jump into a summary and just give an idea about what is going on in the chapter, but it will not suffice. You should read the text itself. So, Wuthering Heights opens with Mr. Lockwood, a new tenant at Thrushcross Grange, writing his diary about his visit to his landlord, Mr. Heathcliff. While entering Wuthering Heights, Lockwood notices but does not comment upon the date 1500s and the name Harrington Earnshaw above the principal door. Lockwood, an unwelcome guest, soon meets Joseph, a servant, and a pack of dogs that have overrun the farmhouse. Although he receives no encouragement from his host, Lockwood decides to make a return visit. So in chapter 1, we have that introduction. We have the introduction about the setting, the place, the time, the weather, the characters. There is some foreshadowing about what will happen in the coming lectures, in the coming chapters. We have some hints, some hints about the future. We have that, circumstances, that conditions, that Gothic nature that we have been introduced to. We find those elements, those natures in chapter 1. So chapter 1 is an introduction about the characters, the time, the place, the setting, the conflicts. So it is the threshold. It is the beginning, the genesis. So as for chapter 1, and let's go to Gothic analysis of chapter 1. Grotesque carvings, menacing dogs, and a general sense of threat are all examples of Gothic literature. Also notice how Wuthering Heights and its inhabitants are directly connected to nature, and a wild nature at that. The house is named after the harsh winds of the moors. So in this chapter we find that Lockwood, the narrator, is narrating the events. He has rented Thrushcross house from Mr. Heathcliff, and he tries to write those events that he has encountered in Wuthering Heights in his diary. So he is making a diary. He is writing the story of Wuthering Heights. Mr. Lockwood is writing, so he is narrating those events from his own subjective perspective. That's why, just to give you some extra information about the types of narrators, we have first person narrator and we have third person narrator. In third person narrator, the narrator tries to be so objective. He is not a character within the story. He tries to be so detached from the story, and he takes no sides. He is so neutral. He is not biased. So he is mostly objective. He is in some case dependable. Okay, we can depend his narration and his story. While in first person narrator, like here in Wuthering Heights, like Mr. Lockwood, he is so subjective. He is so biased. We have, we see the conflict of feelings within his mind, within his psyche. That's why this type of narration, first person narration, like Mr. Lockwood, it puts us in some sense of skepticism. We are skeptical towards his narration. We cannot take what he mentions for granted. That's why there is always place for questioning, for doubt about the events that he mentions in the story. So here we see that Mr. Lockwood, he encounters some grotesque carvings, that castles, as we have seen in Gothic elements, that we have castles. Wuthering Heights was like a castle, was a big house, a big old house, and it has some threats. It has some examples of that Gothic threats that we know all, and its inhabitants, its characters of Wuthering Heights, they are so strange, they are so mysterious, they are vague. We need to to dig deep to understand the nature of those characters. And the nature of Wuthering Heights is so stormy, it's so dark and cloudy. So these types of natural elements, this weather, is all references to Gothic fiction and Gothic literature. And again, the name of Wuthering Heights is named after the winds of the moors. Wuthering Heights means the heavy and harsh winds of the moors of the place that they are living in. So even the name Wuthering Heights, it's a Gothic. It is a reference to Gothic elements. So let's go to the quotes here. And for example, in the beginning, the opening paragraph of the novel is this: "I have just returned from a visit to my landlord." He means Heathcliff, "the solitary neighbor that I shall be troubled with. This is certainly a beautiful country. In all England, I do not believe that I could have fixed on a situation so completely removed from the stir of society." Look, here we have a confession from Lockwood that this is the first impression of Lockwood when he met Wuthering Heights, the place, the castle. We see that he says that it is completely removed from the stir of society. Look, if you remember in the previous lecture on the revolutionary sides, revolutionary elements of Gothic fiction, that it is away from the civilization. Because why? Because it is a female fiction. It is a female genre, and females are always detached from the society. They are detached from the patriarchal, from males' traditions and norms. That's why they are far away from the civilization of men, of patriarchal society. That's why here again, Wuthering Heights is completely removed. It is detached. It is away from the society, from the civilization of rationality and patriarchal society. So here it is so clear that we have some Gothic elements here. And let's go to the second one. Wuthering Heights is the name of Mr. Heathcliff's dwelling. Wuthering being a significant provincial adjective descriptive of the atmospheric tumult to which its station is exposed in stormy weather. Again, Mr. Lockwood here explains the meaning of Wuthering Heights. He says that Wuthering Heights implies the stormy weather of the place. It implies the place that the house of Mr. Heathcliff, the castle of Mr. Heathcliff is there. So again, we have that setting of Gothic fiction. It is so clear here. And number 3, we have, before passing the threshold, I paused to admire a quantity of grotesque carving lavished over the front, and especially about the principal door, above which, among a wilderness of crumbling griffins and shameless little boys, I detected the date 1500s and the name Harrington Earnshaw. Look, in the very beginning of the novel, in the first word, we have the year, the mentioning of the year 1801. So the events are taking place in the beginning of the 19th century. While we have Lockwood here, he mentions that the date of Wuthering Heights, the castle, is 1500. So it is so old. Again, old ancientness, this oldness, this history. It is a reference to the past history of Gothic fiction, that there is a past, there is a secret, there is a very romantic, beautiful past that we always revisit. So again, here 1500 means that there is a beautiful past, there is a long distance, detached past that the characters always revisits. And again, he describes the Gothic elements, the Gothic characteristics of the place, of the castle here. So in general, before we move on to chapter 2, in chapter 1 we have an introduction about the place, about the weather, about the setting in general. So it is about the physical things. While in chapter 2 we have some descriptions of the characters themselves. So in number 1 we have the society, the circumstances, the setting. Here we have the characters in chapter 2. So as a summary, let's start with the summary. Lockwood returns to Wuthering Heights the next day. As he arrives, it begins to snow. No one answers his knock at the door, and an old servant with a heavy Yorkshire accent named Joseph tells him that Heathcliff is away. Eventually, a rough young man lets Lockwood in and brings him to a sitting room. In the room also is a beautiful but rather rude young woman. Soon after, Heathcliff arrives. He scolds Lockwood for coming, then invites him to dinner. During the meal, Lockwood learns that the young woman, whom he assumed was Heathcliff's wife, is the widow of Heathcliff's son, and that the rough young man, whom Lockwood thought was Heathcliff's son, is Heathcliff's nephew. The meal is awkward. At one point, the young woman threatens to use witchcraft on Joseph the servant. It starts to snow heavily, and while discussing how Lockwood will get home, the woman tells Heathcliff that if he lets Lockwood leave alone, she hopes Lockwood's ghost will hunt him. Fed up with the bickering, and with no one willing to guide him home, Lockwood takes a lantern, promising to return it the next day, and leaves, but Joseph thinks he's stealing the lantern and sends the dogs after him. The dogs pin Lockwood down, which amuses Heathcliff and Harrington. Lockwood then gets a nosebleed and is forced to spend the night at Wuthering Heights. Zillah, the housekeeper, leads him inside. I suppose from this reading of the summary and your prior reading of chapter 2, you have noticed that there are so many Gothic elements here in chapter 2, like so many things, like when the woman threatens to use witchcraft on Joseph, and how the woman again tells Heathcliff that if you leave Lockwood to leave the house right now in this snowy weather, his soul will come back, his ghost will come back and haunt him. And again the weather, again the place, again those intense moments on the table, again again, those intense meetings and conflicts and stirs and gazes at each other, they all refer to Gothic elements and Gothic characteristics in chapter 2. Look, as we move on, the Gothic elements intensify, they get thickened, they condense, they increase in number. We have so obvious Gothic elements here. So let's move on to Gothic analysis of chapter 2. First one, many plot points in the novel coincide with harsh weather, further building the story's Gothic elements. These plot events always occur at Wuthering Heights. Again, look, we have another reference to the harsh weather, to the snow, to the darkness, to that, to the night, those events that happen in the night. So we have these, Gothic references to the weather, and it's really interesting. The second one is that family secrets are another Gothic element that appears much in this novel. This chapter implies many past secrets. Look, one of the main important features is the secrets of the family. This is the past secrets that those members of the family, they try to hide, they try to conceal, because they always, threaten their identity, their present identity. They always try to, hide those secrets. There is a problem in those secrets. That's why they are hidden. Otherwise, they would be exposed to everyone. It will no longer be a secret. So there are many secrets in the family. They try to hide and to run away from those secrets because they are so, they haunt them whenever they think of those secrets. They haunt them every day, every moment. That's why the family tries to, keep those secrets away and hidden from Lockwood, the stranger. The third one is that there are other Gothic elements. A Gothic haunting Heathcliff foreshadows future events, as does the woman's hope for revenge on Heathcliff. Note how the storm intensifies, along with the passion in the house. Again, we have those references to a ghost haunting Heathcliff. It foreshadows the coming event in the coming chapter, in chapter 3. We have the appearance of ghosts in chapter 3. So we have the revenge on Heathcliff. Revenge is another important Gothic element. Revenge here is really important, and how Heathcliff always will try to take revenge from his family. We will recognize further what will happen in the coming chapters. And again, look, the weather, this storm, the snow intensifies while the conflict intensifies. When the conflict increases, even the snow increases in size. So we have such a beautiful relationship between the weather and the personal psychological conflict among characters. Let's move on to chapter 2 and the quotes of chapter 2. Yesterday afternoon, set in misty and cold, I had half a mind to spend it by my study fire instead of wading through heath and mud to Wuthering Heights. Again, this is the opening sentence of chapter 2, when Lockwood is speaking with himself. That again, he describes the harsh weather and the snow and the mud and those settings, those Gothic settings that we have been talking so far about. So again, this is an introduction. Okay, this is a preparation for what will happen. Okay, and the second quote is, "The little witch put a mock malignity, into her beautiful eyes, and Joseph, trembling with sincere horror, hurried out, praying and ejaculating wicked as he went. I thought her conduct must be prompted by a species of dreadify, and now that we were alone, I endeavored to interest her in my distress." Look, again, we have that threatening of the woman, that she will put her witchcraft on Joseph, and how he ran away. it is a reference to one of the Gothic elements, which is supernatural elements or powers or plot conventions. That one of those plot conventions is curse with spelling out spells and witchcraft. So again, here it is very clear that we have those Gothic elements. Let's go to chapter 3, the last part of today's lecture. Let's start with the summary. Zillah, the servant, Zillah brings Lockwood to a room that Heathcliff usually doesn't allow anyone to stay in. Left alone, Lockwood notices 3 names scratched into the paint of the bed: Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Heathcliff, and Catherine Linton. Lockwood also finds a 25-year-old diary written by Catherine Earnshaw. He reads an entry from a time just after her father died, in which her older brother Hindley makes Catherine and Heathcliff listen to Joseph's dull sermons. From the entry, it's clear that Hindley hated Heathcliff, but that Catherine and Heathcliff were close. That night, Lockwood has a nightmare in which he breaks a window to get some air, and a child grabs his hands. She says her name is Catherine Linton, and begs to enter, claiming she's been trying to get in for 20 years. Lockwood finds her and frees himself. She continues to beg, and he cries out. His yell carries into the real world. Heathcliff hears it and comes running. He's upset to find Lockwood in the room, while Lockwood's upset over the ghost. Lockwood describes his nightmare to Heathcliff, who becomes livid when Lockwood says the dream waif deserves to be punished. Heathcliff, sobbing, opens the window and shouts for Catherine to come in. The next morning, Heathcliff escorts Lockwood home. The servants of Thrushcross Grange are overjoyed to see Lockwood. They feared he died in a storm. But Lockwood, in no mood for company, locks himself in the study. Again, depending on your real reading of the text of the novel of chapter 3, and according to this summary, we find interesting events in this chapter, like that Zillah tries to make Lockwood to sleep in the secret chamber, the secret room. Again, we have that secret room in Gothic fiction, those secret places in the houses, like the attic, like in the basement. So Zillah takes Lockwood to sleep in the secret chamber. There he finds again some secrets about the past, when he finds that diary about the past, about the conflicts among those characters. So we have that conflict, that past secrets, they are coming alive, they are getting out of the diary and becoming alive and hunting Lockwood. Again, it is not clear, but we find out later that he falls asleep. In his sleep, in his nightmare, he finds Catherine. We will find out which Catherine. We'll find out that Catherine Linton begs to come in. She will cry, "Let me in, let me in." And when he will, then that ghost holds the hands of Lockwood and begging to come in, to let him in. Being afraid, Lockwood starts to cry while he was sleeping, waking everybody in the house, and make Heathcliff comes up to the secret chamber. Again, we have that uncanny that Freud talks about, the uncanny that comes into our sleeps, into our dreams, in the form of some nightmares. They are the opening of the gate of the unconscious. Those complexes, those fears comes out, though they pour out into our conscious, into our dreams. That's why here the uncanny happens in this scene. And let's move on to Gothic analysis of chapter 3. The mysterious room no one is allowed to stay in, the mysterious names carved into the bed, and the discovered diary are all Gothic elements. Through the diary, Lockwood gets his first glimpse into the story behind Wuthering Heights. So the first one, we have those mysterious names. We have that secret diary, that mysterious diary, and those names, those secrets. They are all Gothic elements, and that's why, out of his curiosity, Lockwood tries to decode those secrets, those elements, those past events. That's why he tries to read all the writings and memories of that diary. In the second one, that's the second Gothic analysis, this scene contains the one truly supernatural event in the novel, with Lockwood dreaming of the real Catherine Linton. But it's Heathcliff's response to the dream which is most interesting, the way that he seems to want or even need this ghost to haunt him. Heathcliff's all-consuming love and passion for Catherine is made clear in this scene, and that love is connected to nature when Heathcliff throws open the window in order to speak with Catherine. So this is the most intense and supernatural event in the novel. When we, again, as I have already explained, that Lockwood falls asleep, and in a nightmare he sees that Catherine begs him to let him in. That ghost of Catherine, which is dead for almost 20 years. I hope you will read it by yourself, alone at night, while turning the lights off. Okay, it will give you some Gothic circumstances. You will really enjoy reading this chapter. Okay, and specifically this scene. So try it, please. And again, so we have this supernatural element of Gothic fiction here, the appearance of the ghost of Catherine, who is dead, who is already dead for 20 years, and other aspects. Let's go to the next one. While Heathcliff opens the window to the storm to try to speak with Catherine, Lockwood locks himself inside to escape all that passion. It is a reference to the conflict between nature and civilization. Look, Lockwood represents civilization. Lockwood is a reference to the civilization. He represents rationality. He represents the patriarchal society. He represents that English tradition and norm and civilization. On the other hand, we have Heathcliff. He is the gypsy character. We will find out more about Heathcliff in the coming chapters. Heathcliff represents the nature. He represents that isolated place away from the civilization. Okay, so here we have that conflict between nature and civilization, between Heathcliff and Lockwood. That was another, Gothic element. And the last one, Lockwood also reads some family secrets in the diary he found in the secret chamber. So again, those Gothic diaries, those Gothic secrets and memories written in the diary, they all again reflect the Gothic elements that are found in this novel, because family secrets are an important part of Gothic fiction. And the last part of today's lecture is the quote. We have two quotes here. Number one, while leading the way upstairs, she recommended that I should hide the candle and not make a noise, for a master had an odd notion about the chamber she would put me in, and never let anybody lodge there willingly. I asked the reason. She did not know. She answered, she had only lived there a year or two, and they had so many queer goings on. She could not begin to be curious. So again, here we have that atmosphere of curiosity, though this quotation is full of secrets about the past that cannot be revealed easily. That's why she says that she will take Lockwood to the secret chamber, but Heathcliff should not know, the landlord should not know, because he will get angry. When he asked about the reason, she said, I don't know, because I have been here for only 1 year or 2 years. That's why she is so respectful. She doesn't want to interfere into others' secrets. That's why she kept quiet, and she doesn't know anything about the secrets of that chamber. And the last part, though it is a long quotation, but it's very important, one of the most important quotes in this novel, and very interesting. So let's read and enjoy. This time, I remembered I was lying in the oak closet, and I heard distinctly the gusty wind and the driving of the snow. I heard also the fair bats repeat its teasing sound, and they ascribed it to the right cause. But it annoyed me so much that I resolved to silence it, if possible. And I thought, I rose and endeavored to unhasp the casement. The hook was soldered into the staple, a circumstance observed by me when awake but forgotten. I must stop it. Nevertheless, I muttered, knocking my knuckles through the glass and stretching an arm out to seize the importunate branch, instead of which my fingers closed on the fingers of a little ice-cold hand. The intense horror of nightmare came over me. I tried to draw back my arm, but the hand clung to it, and a most melancholy voice sobbed, "Let me in, let me in." "Who are you?" I asked, struggling meanwhile just to disengage myself. "Catherine Linton," it replied, shiveringly. Why did I think of Linton? I had read Earnshaw 20 times for Linton. "I'm come home. I'd lost my way on the moor." As it spoke, I discerned obscurely a child's face looking through the window. Terror made me cruel, and finding it useless to attempt shaking the creature off, I pulled its wrist on to the broken pane and rubbed it to and fro till the blood ran down and soaked the bedclothes. Still it wailed, "Let me in," and maintained its tenacious gripe, almost maddening me with fear. "How can I said at length. "Let me go if you want me to let you in." The fingers relaxed and snatched mine through the hole, hurriedly piled the books up in a pyramid against it, and stopped my ears to exclude the lamentable prayer. I seemed to keep them closed above a quarter of an hour. Yet, the instant I listened again, there was the doleful cry moaning on. "Begone!" I shout. "I'll never let you in, not if you beg for 20 years." "It is 20 years," mourned the voice. 20 years, I've been away for 20 years. Thereat began a feeble scratching outside, and the pile of books moved as it thrust forward. I tried to jump, but could not stir a limb, and so yelled aloud in a frenzy of fright. Okay, it was very, intensified scene. It was very, fearful. You should feel that gothic, the horror inside the scene. When he sees the ghost is begging. You just imagine that you are sleeping in a secret chamber in a house away from civilization, in the woods at night, and then you hear that somebody is knocking on your window. Knock, knock. Who is it? "I'm the ghost. Let me in." Okay, that's really horrible. Okay, that's really fearful. You may faint. You may just die. Okay, out of fear. So that was the scene. It was really horrible. We have so many things here, mainly the appearance of the ghost, which is one of the most important supernatural elements in Gothic fiction. So that's enough for today. Please, I beg you, let me in your mind, as Catherine has been, begging to let her in the house. So let me in your mind, and please read the real text of the novel. the chapters, okay, in order to have a better understanding of the chapters. For the coming lectures, we will talk more about the coming chapters, and we will have another interesting reading of those Gothic elements in the fiction in this novel. So thank you very much, thank you for watching, and stay tuned. Bye bye.